teaching and learning process, teaching and learning purposes. In this COVID era, I suppose we all are one way or other using these online tools for teaching and learning. But we have to see how we can make it effective. So let us try to understand this, what we mean by the effectiveness. Can any of you tell me what is the difference between effectiveness and efficiency? Anyone? There are two terms mostly used for improving the productivity of anything what we are doing. These are effectiveness and efficiency. Do you understand these two terms? Any of? Efficiency means use of minimum resources for delivery of some output, whereas effectiveness means achieving the goals, achieving the destination, reaching where we want to reach, making what we want to make. So in this session, we'll be focusing on different online tools which are being used or may be used for teaching and learning purposes, and how we can make more effective. So we shall be discussing context setting, understanding 4-quadrant approach, Creative Commons licenses, finding and using OER, creating on content, students' engagement in online and offline mode, forms of ICT enabled learning, Bloom digital taxonomy, flipped classroom, content development process, content structure for quadrant approach, and OER, which will be a great help for faculty and student to develop the content. Now, as and when we get this opportunity of either teaching a particular course to our students, or for that matter, speaking in any particular platform, we must set the context. What we have to deliver, that should be unambiguously made clear. So here in the context setting, the relevance of creating online learning content must be clear to oneself, who is creator, as well as to whom the delivery is being made. Then one should understand essentials of content development process, and finally structuring and understanding ingredients of excellent online teacher or trainer. These are the three main elements which each one of us has to understand. Coming to this e-learning, all are familiar with this terminology: internet enabled learning, E here is used for electronic. Bernard Luskin, a great learning expert, he has defined this E as a very powerful alphabet of English. E is used for exciting, energetic, enthusiastic, emotional, extended, and educational. All can be created and developed and delivered by using this E. So E is a very, very powerful. And e-learning is basically learner focused, learner centered, more interactive. You all understand. These days, various tools are available for e-learning that we all are using, we all are understanding. The primary requirement for using online tools, you have to have device through which you can deliver or you can connect with your students, with your audience. So you need a device, whether it be a computer device, it may be a mobile device, it may be a tablet or any, but it should have certain specifications so that it could be more effective. Then you need to have web camera, you need to have high internet Wi-Fi system or high internet. Through this, you can connect to your audience. With what advantage? The advantage will be that whatever is being delivered, as this session is being recorded, so every session can be recorded and the delivery can be made available for future use also. So there is a self-paced, whenever the audience or the participants, they find time, they can look into it. Wherever they are, they can use it. So it is more flexible. Here, one can incorporate personalized learning, on-demand learning, and more engagement can be arranged. So these are various advantages of using online tools for teaching and learning purposes. Now, there are different ways for e-learning. What are different ways? Synchronous learning may be one, asynchronous learning may be another, instructor-led group may be formed, that may be another, self-study with subject expert may be another, web-based blogs, video audio streaming, all different ways may be used for e-learning purposes. Now, learning and teaching takes place at the same time, but learners and trainers, they are not at one place. They are physically separated, as you are sitting in the comfort of your home and still you are part of this class. You are part of this session. So this is the great advantage, that you can interact at a remote, being located at the remote place through the use of different platforms, Zoom, MS Team, Google. There are a number of platforms that they are available to connect. Live satellite broadcast may be also used, or online lectures. Let's try to understand asynchronous learning. In this asynchronous learning, the courseware is prepared before the course starts. and then learner can decide when to study the content. You have prepared your course before actually announcing when it is going to be started, and just before starting the course, the prepared or the created content is delivered to all those learners, and then they will decide when to study that content. Now it is quite flexible. Even the schedule is also provided by the creator, but still it is at the flexibility of the learner that whenever they find ease of their resources, they can make use of this type of learning. Video recorded classes, sending reading material through emails, self-paced courses, recorded web presentations, seminar, all that can happen. And this is all asynchronous learning. Let us try to understand essentials of content development process, because all what we are trying to do is to make the learner at its ease to understand the content. So until unless we understand how the content development process takes place, we will not be able to develop or create content appropriate for the need of the learner. So the most common and popular model used for developing e-content is the ADDIE model. And this ADDIE model, which has five elements: analysis, ADDIE, analysis, design, development, implementation, and finally evaluation. So any content development process should have undergone these five steps. First, analysis is to be made. Then we have to design our content, what learners are requiring, and then according as per the need of the learner, development will take place, and finally the content is delivered, and then it is a continuous process to keep evaluating the content. So ADDIE model is very, very popular model for content development process. Now the first part is the analysis, and here one has to do contextual analysis as per the learner's need. So you have to have the analysis for learner, what kind of learner and what its needs are, what is the level of learner's understanding. All that analysis need to be done, and finally the task analysis to be done, what task to be included in your content so that learner is very comfortable in understanding what you want to make the learner to understand. And finally, the developed content is also to be analyzed with a view that what you had planned in the beginning, whether it fulfills all that or not. After this complete analysis, we will enter into the next phase, that is design phase. Are you following? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the next part is the design part, and design part will take into consideration that we have to define the learning objectives. Why content we are considering? What are the learning objectives? So we have to define the learning objectives and outcomes. AICTE has already made this system for every engineering college that they should include this ADDIE model for content development. Then learning objectives to be defined in clear, realistic and measurable terms. The learning objectives need not be so ambiguous that it is only having the qualitative meaning and one cannot measure. Such learning objectives should be avoided. They should be defined in a very clear, realistic and measurable terms, so that at the end of learning session, one can measure that what was intended has really achieved or not. Instructional strategies to be stated very clearly. And then finally, learner evaluation strategies are also to be specified. So these things are to be made very prominent while designing the content. Then in the next step, development and testing, scripting the entire course content, describing step by step script of the final outcome of e-content, refining objectives and instructional strategies, and then testing the e-content which is to be developed. And finally, materials are distributed to the learners. So this is the implementation stage. After implementation, we have to evaluate. And evaluation phase consists of two parts: formative evaluation and summative evaluation. So in a nutshell, process of content development can be summarized as it all production process, they have these three important elements. So are in this process of content development: input, process and output. These are the three requirements that anything, if you want to develop, that will require some input. So here in the content development, what will go into the input? Lesson and activity plan, storyboarding, all this will be part of the input. And then how we will process it to make it as per the learner's need. So visual design, multimedia production, and finally we will also review it whether what we intended to do is actually being produced or not. So review and feedback, corrections and quality assurance is done in between before the output is finally delivered to the learner's content management system. Now in this content development process, nowadays a new term is available, that is OER. If we are using the OER, content development process becomes much easier. So OER stands for Open Educational Resources. In the age of IT, we have a lot of material available which one can use for its content development process, and that has been popularized by RENASE, known as OER. In this, there is an open access, open content, open courseware, open course open source software, open educational resources, all are available, but it is still not in the knowledge of everyone. So there is a need that we as a technical teacher, we must know and help and developing this OER movement further for the benefit of everyone, faculty, student, or researcher, or anybody can use freely. So here we are, as we are moving toward the open society, so the knowledge is also must be in the open domain, and that is the movement, open movement, open source software, open data, open access, open licenses, open educational resources, open science, open society, all that we are heading toward that. That means, what does it mean? It means sharing beyond the classroom. Under the traditional teaching methods, educator was delivering the content and learning activity or resource which was created, and that remains with that educator only. Later, it started being shared with students and faculty as we do right now. But in this OER, additional considerations have been made for clearing of copyright issues, formatting for web and accessibility for reuse, addition of descriptive metadata, publishing in repository, referatory or on the web. So now this tool is designed as OER on the web, available to other faculties, students and institutions, although very less work is done in some areas that need to be strengthened by each one of us. So what has enabled OER? It has enabled change in philosophy, affordances of the internet, alternative copyright licensing, arranging of financial models. How it began? So let us move into the history of this movement. In 2002, this term was first used by at UNESCO conference, and soon after MIT created Open Courseware project, which began in 2001 and was one of the first major initiatives of the OER movement. MIT was the first to implement this OER. Let us further go into the history. In 1994, Vane Hodgins defined term learning object, and this was the eye catcher of instructional designers, learning object, and the role was popularization of the idea that digital materials can be designed and produced in such manner as to be reused easily in a variety of pedagogical situations. That was the main purpose behind it, that the content which has already been developed, then that can be reused, that can be improved and further shared and reused. So it will again improve the quality of the content, and this is how everyone will get benefited. In 98, David Willey, he was the person who coined this term open content, and his target was educational community, So the term was quickly became focused for all vernacular users of the internet. Here, one role was to popularize the idea that the principles of the open source or free software movements can be productively applied to the content, and the creation of the first widely adopted open licenses for content to be used. So, further development took place. What was the further development? That in 2001, Larry Lessig and his team founded the Creative Commons platform, CC, Creative Commons platform, and released a flexible set of licenses that were both a vast improvement on the open publication licenses, confusing license option structure, and significantly stronger legal documents. That was his contribution, that earlier licenses were very confusing and everyone was scared of being caught under the Copyright Act. So in 2001, Larry Lessig and others and his team, they founded Creative Commons with this purpose. The role of Creative Commons in the history of open educational resources is to increase the credibility and confidence. They are legally superior, much easier to use licenses brought to the open content community. That was the purpose. As we have already discussed, in 2001, MIT announced its open courseware initiative, and most of the university courses of the MIT degree, they were made available for free public access for non-commercial use. MIT courseware has played many roles in the history of open educational resources as commitment at an institutional level, working actively to encourage similar projects, and lending the MIT brand to the movement. So this is what different contributions MIT did. In 2002, what happened in 2002? UNESCO organized the first global OER forum in 2002. And in this global OER forum, this OER was finally adopted by the global community. In 2005, further OER community wiki was founded. And this was Hewlett Foundation. This, if you open this wiki educator domain, this domain was registered in 2006, and it will look like this. If you open the on the Google wiki educator, so it will look like this, and you will find lot of OER material available on this domain. In 2006, PLOS for Edu launches for African OER. In 2008, OER Africa was launched. So let us try to further understand what this OER is. Open educational resources are those materials which are offered freely and openly for using and adapting for teaching, learning, development, and research. OER are those materials which have been offered freely and they can be openly used and adapted for teaching, learning, developing, and research purposes. So it's a big movement, OER, and that is making the use of online tools more effective because whatever has already been developed, that you can make use of it in your content without any fear of copyright violation. So the open educational resources are teaching and learning materials that are freely available online for everyone to use, whether you are an instructor, you are a student, or any other self-learner. The domain of OER have been released under intellectual property license that permits their reuse and repurposing by others. Open educational resources, you will find full courses, course materials, modules, textbooks, streaming videos, tests, software, all are available. Only thing is that you have to find it, and then if any customization is required, that customization you may make to it. So it is very easy for making the customized content as per the need of the creator or as per the need of the learner. So open resources, open educational resources, they are free and openly licensed educational materials that can be used for teaching, learning, research, and other purposes. So this is a big opportunity that each one of us can make use of it. And open in open content has these 5 R's framework. 5 R's, that means open resources can be reused, open resources can be revised, it can be remixed, it can be redistributed, it can be retained. These 5 R's framework can be used. So now you can think of that if this movement further and further, it will be a big boon to the educational community, that the MIT material available for the learner or for their student or for everyone's use, you can reuse it, you can revise it, you can remix it, you can redistribute it, you can retain it without any fear for copyright violation. So here, what different type of educational resources are available? Different courses are available, course materials are available, content modules are available, learning objects are available, collections, other collections, journals, all different resources, educational resources, they are available. Now, what one challenge is that how to find these resources. You have to first find the resources, and then that resource you can customize as per your need or as per the need of your audience or at need of your learners. So it can be shared freely and openly for being used by anyone. Anyone can use it. And it can be improved also. Adapt, repurpose, improve under some type of license in order to redistribute it and redistribute with the improved form and share it again. So you can develop the content very, very easily using this OER. Now here, when we talk of that we can use it OER or the resources without any fear from the copyright violations. So here alternative copyright licensing has been adopted, and this is all acceptable across the globe. Now you see this complete, here comes copyright. Copyright means all rights are reserved. This is it visible to all of you? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it
It's
okay?
visible, sir.
Okay. So here in the extreme left, you see this copyright. Copyright means all rights are reserved. And in between, you see this Creative Commons licenses. And then finally, it is public domain where there is no rights reserved. So under this, from the most restrictive copyright to the most accommodating public domain, there is another provision has been made by Creative Commons to issue the licenses. And 6 types of licenses they have issued. They have issued these 6 licenses. First license, attribution, non-commercial, no derivatives. And attribution is given the letter B by E. If you see anywhere this CC symbol, that means it is Creative Commons license, and it is acceptable across the globe, so you need not to worry. First thing. Second is that you see this B by E. B by E is the attribution, and then you see NC. NC means it is non-commercial. Neither you can make it commercial nor anybody else can make it commercial. And then ND. ND is no derivative, no duplication can be made, no copies can be made. So it is less restricted than copyright, but it is most restricted in the Creative Commons licenses. This one. Then comes another type, BYNC-SA. In this, it is by attribution. Then second is the non-commercial, but it can be share alike. It can be shared alike. Third license is the attribution, but non-commercial, BYNC. But here it can be made copies can be made, it can be shared. Then fourth is the BYND. Only restriction is that no derivative can be made, but you can make it commercial. For commercial use also you can use it. Then fifth one is the attribution share alike. And finally, only by attribution, where all sort of different flexibilities have been done, except by attribution that you have to acknowledge the creator's name. Only restriction put here in the 6th one is that you have to acknowledge who have already created, and then you can make use of anything. You can have the commercial use, you can have the derivatives, you can do anything. Only restriction put here in the 6th license is that you have to acknowledge the creator. And then whatever is available on public domain, there is no right reserved. Anything can be done for the content available in the public domain. So is this clear? That on the one extreme, we have the material available which is covered under the copyright. So that is all rights are reserved. You cannot use without the express permission of the author or the creator. Then there is content, huge content is available with these 6 licenses of the Creative Commons CC. You see it here, and that can be reused, redistributed, improved, or all 5R can be used here. And then there is another last public domain. That material may be good or maybe material which cannot be used. So that public domain, but there is no right reserved. So you can see this symbol is very important. These 6 licenses are by this symbol. And if you open the content, you will find one of the 6 symbols available. And from that, you can identify which license it has and what flexibilities we have for making use of this content. So, so attribution, share alike, non-commercial and non-derivative, these are different terminologies used in these licensing, and here you can have the lot of flexibility, and the complete freedom is available that for your own use, you can always use the entire OER content available at different places. So what makes an OER? It is educational curriculum materials or mixed media. It is discoverable online as they are shared freely and openly. It is openly licensed, usually Creative Commons. Can be legally used by anyone to repurpose, improve, and redistribute. Now, how to find posts related to OER materials? That is a big challenge. Having understood what OER is all about, then the big challenge is that where to find so that you can use for your own purpose or for purpose of learners. So you can see it here. You can straight away open this OER Commons, Open Educational Resources. This, and here you can search the required material. You can find all OER materials available. So on OER Commons platform, you can use it and search all OER material you will find, like you search on the Google. But Google, it will give you all different other than OER materials or OER resources. But here in the on the OER Commons, only the OER material will be made available. Then in Google Advanced Search also will help to find this OER material, and here you have to use the tools and go in the advanced search, and in the advanced search it will search the OER content, and finally using the CC licenses you can identify which or what content can be made use of. Another place is the OE consortium. On OE consortium, oeconsortium.org, here also you can find OER material, Open Education Consortium. Here also you can search. Then Creative Commons search is a more popular, and you can open this CC search.creativecommons.org and write whatever you want to search and click search. It will then here you see at the bottom, I want something I can use commercially, modify or adopt. If you click here, use for commercially, it will screen the material for the commercial use only. And if you take both, then it will search the material which can be made use commercially, as well as it can be modified and it can be adapted. So in this way you can search this material. Khan Academy, MIT, OpenCourseware, Wikipedia, Connections, Sailor Academy, and so on. There are different resources are freely available, and which will give you a lot of material you are searching for. So explore and find and search this material. and you develop the course content as per your need, as per the need of the learner. And you can also collaborate for content creation with some other institutions or with some other educator training centers. So this is how you can develop the course content, and you can share it. So you may become a member of Wiki Educator. There also it will help you to find the available material. It will look like this on this address. You can find this different OER material available for your use, like this. Now, so having understood the content development process, let us try to understand key ingredients for an online teacher. In this COVID era, we all have to use and become an online teacher. We have to understand that how we can make the teaching and learning effective. So ingredients, you may be, first you know learner's profile. Be there for them, engage them with various activities that one has to do. In online class, your teaching style can get lost in translation. Although this is beginning to change, it is still the case that a primary means of communication in an online course is the written word. Because earlier when we were there in the offline classes, we come prepared for the class and we start interacting, speaking whatever we had in our mind, with the sometimes with or without help of some written notes. But here, being an online teacher or using the online resources, online tool, we have to have the good content made available to the learner and its understanding by the presenter. So the focus is the learner. Organize the course content intuitively so that it is more interesting, it is more easier, it is more enjoyable. Add visual appeal, explain your expectations, scaffold learning activities, provide examples, make class an inviting, pleasant place to be, commit to continuous improvement. The advantage of this all is this content is available in the soft form and you can always keep on improving it continuously. So the forms of ICT enabled learning. Now you have three types of learning. One is the hybrid, blended, or it may be online. Hybrid is the method of teaching remote and in-person students at the same time by a virtual lab. Some courses in the program is taught 100% online, some are partially, some are. So blended mode is also in demand, flipping the in-class teaching which happens outside the classroom. Classroom teaching is substituted by discussion and other activity. Here some part is delivered online. So then online, full course is delivered online using synchronous or asynchronous mode. So these are different forms of ICT enabled learning nowadays, and the teacher and learner, they have to decide which form is more suitable for their category of learners. Now here you see the Bloom's digital taxonomy. Bloom has identified different levels of learning, and here 6 levels have been identified. Level 1 can the learner recall or remember the information? So the focus is on remembering. So lower level, level 1 is the very basic or lower level. Small child, for them, level 1 strategy is used. Can the learner recall or remember the information? So the emphasis is on defining, duplicating, listing, memorizing, recalling, repeating, stating. Basic keyword searches of search engines, they are made before the learner. In the level 2, you see this, can the learner explain the ideas or concept? Higher level, and here classify, describe, discuss, explain, identify, locate, recognize, report, select, translate, paraphrase. Emphasis is on categorizing and tagging of bookmarks. So this is higher level, level 2. And finally, at level 3, can the learner use information in new way? Applying, emphasis is on applying, choosing, demonstrating, dramatizing, implying, illustrating, interpreting, operating, scheduling, sketching, solving, using, writing. So producing a presentation, document or simulation once we reach at the level of 3. Then as we go higher, level 4, can the learner distinguish between different parts? So use online survey tool and data analysis for appraising, comparing, contrasting, criticizing, differentiating, discriminating, distinguishing, examining. Then we further go up and we reach to level 5. Can the learner justify his stand or decision? So that focus becomes on evaluating, moderating and responding on a blog. And finally, the highest level, that is level 6, can the learner create a new product or point of view? So that is used for research and write the text for the ebook. So this is the Bloom's digital taxonomy that is very, very popular these days, and it can be used that which level of content is to be required and designed. The flipped classroom is again becoming popular these days. During the class or in class, here you see the out of class engagement is also made part of your classroom. Before the classroom, goal is student prepared to participate in the class activities. Then student practice applying key concepts with feedback, that is part of the in class. And finally, after the class, students check their understanding and extend their learning. So before the class, in class and out of class. So student engage with lecture or other material outside the class and prepare for active learning experience in the class. So this is known as flipped classroom. So this concept is also becoming very, very popular, that we go for the flipped classroom, that we have designed it that students, they are engaged before coming to the class, prepared well, so that they can apply it in the class, and finally they after go home, there also students check their understanding and extend their learning. So this is continuously they are engaged and their learning is evaluated. And so flipped classroom, you will see this is created here, this is compared here. In the traditional model, what was being done earlier, as per the Bloom's taxonomy, students are responsible for homework in these levels of understanding. Which levels? Analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Teachers introduce new material to the students for remembering, understanding, and applying. Whereas in the flipped model, the philosophy has been reversed. Teachers are using new material to the student outside of the class as their homework. Students and teachers work together during the school day or class day on these levels of learning. So this is just opposite of the traditional model, and flipped classroom concept has been becoming very popular and effective these days. So what is the goal? Goal is to cultivate a deeply engaged learning experience for the students when the faculty is present to facilitate and guide them. So here the emphasis is on higher order thinking skills and application to complex problems. So in this, you can include case-based learning, collaborative learning, problem sets, and in this way, there is a higher and higher motivation also. So students, they also find it very interesting, as well as they remains motivated entire session. Introduce the task, out of the class task, then assess learning and in-class activity. If they are able to apply it before you, that means they are quite happy and they are quite learning the concept. So here you see this framework of the flipped classroom syllabus. From the syllabus, you develop the master session plan. Then from the master session plan, you develop the lesson plan, and lesson plan must be in two parts: for in class, face to face, and out of class. And out of class, you have to use the 4-quadrant approach. Quadrant 1, audio video lectures may be supplemented. Self-record, YouTube and PTL, they are part of this. Then in the quadrant 2nd, ebooks or PPTs, self-curate, OERs, so that all can be made part of this. Quadrant 3rd, discussion forum, case studies, role play, and finally in the quadrant 4, self-assessment, subjective and objective, and then gradable continuous internal assessment, and submit the marks on learning management system. So this is known as 4-quadrant approach. Dr. Chauhan, hello, Dr. Chauhan, Archana, Dr.
Hello,
Archana?
sir.
Am I audible clearly?
Yeah, sir. You are audible, sir.
Okay. Actually, from this side, it is not visible that whether I am audible or not. So, 4-quadrant approach.
Then you are audible, sir. Yeah.
There are 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Quadrant 1 is devoted to e-tutorial, which shall contain video, audio content in an organized form, animation, simulations, video demonstrations, virtual labs, etc., along with the transcription of the video. So this is as part of the quadrant 1, first part of it. Then as the learner has completed the quadrant 1 content, then quadrant 2. Here e-content, which shall contain self-instructional materials, e-books, illustrations, case studies, presentations, and also contain web resources such as further references, related links, open source content on internet, video, case studies, books, including e-books, research papers, journals, historical development of the subject, etc. So that is after the quadrant 1. Quadrant 2, they are made engaged. Quadrant 3rd is the discussion forum for raising the doubts and clarifying them on a near real-time basis by the course coordinator or his team. So this is the after completion of the quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. Quadrant 3rd is for discussing what they have understood, whether they have any doubt or they have anything to be discussed. That is part of the quadrant 3rd. And finally, quadrant 4th is the assessment quadrant, in which will contain the problems and solutions, which could be in the form of MCQs, fill in the blanks, matching questions, short answer questions, long answer questions, quizzes, assignments, solutions, discussion forums, topics, setting up the application, and all this can happen the learner sitting at the ease of his or own home or anywhere. So most flexible system, and this can be delivered completely online. So now process of content development we have already seen. Lesson and activity plan or storyboarding become part of the input, and then visual design or multimedia is a part of the process. We can review it whether we are going in the right direction or not. Finally, we produce it, and the delivery of content over LCMS, Learners Content Management System. So then lesson and activity plan are to be prepared. Although at the primary class level, those teachers who have done B.Ed courses, Bachelor of Education, they are taught all these things, that how to prepare different lessons and activity plan. But the technical teachers like us, we don't undergo such training, and we rarely used to make lessons and activity plan. But AICTE has made mandatory these days, so every faculty or every teacher has to prepare the lesson and activity plan. So the guidelines for creating lesson plan, it should be detailed and mapped with the syllabus, benchmarked against the global and national universities, have the core conceptual topics, reflect proper teaching flow, and it should be cleared or approved by the course committee. So then creating the lesson plan, first identify the course structure, then syllabus is divided into different modules, identify topics in each module, break up each topic into subtopics depending on the weightage of given in the syllabus, and make a master Excel sheet. Then content flow for video lecture should also be decided. Here the learning or objective outcome should be clearly identified at the very beginning. Then concept introduction, then detailed concept explanation, then application, examples, case study or solution, and finally summarizing the whole thing which have been presented before them, and then make an assessment. And it is also advisable that make the video lecture very short, not more than 10 minutes. And PPT also as short as possible, not more very lengthy. Each video should cover only one topic for being more effective. So suggested delivery structure for the lecture video, this all you are familiar with. Introduction to the topic, it should take not more than 30 seconds. Then setting the perspective, yes, it should also not take more than 2 minutes, and then main topic for 5 minutes. So this is how the video delivery structure you can plan or you can design, you can think of. Then use of examples, again very short type, and finally conclusion, again in not more than 2 minutes. So uploading, then finally after creating the content, you have to upload the content in the 4 quadrants on LMS: Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So this is all should be developed, and finally it should be uploaded on the LMS. Then various tools these days are available for student engagement. One important tool is the Kahoot. How many of you are familiar with this tool? Please let me know how many of you are familiar with this tool, Kahoot. Okay, no one. It was founded in 2012 by Morten Versvik. teamed up with Professor Alf, learning at its heart, and you can find on this link. Students don't need any account, only required to visit. So you can use this. This will look like this. See, here you can make sign up or login, and then your student need not to have any account, only they can join you. Then another important tool is the Answer Garden. It's a feedback tool. You can visit this link, no account needed, and you can share this URL link with the students. Padlet, again, this is also online bulletin board, and you can find it on this link. Mentimeter, it was founded in 2014, Swedish company based in Stockholm, and you can have this tool on this link. This will look like this: prepare, engage, and follow up. Then another different tools which may also be used by teachers and students: Prezi, Haku, Scratch, Animoto, Pixton, Boom Writer, Explain Everything, Edu Creations, Blogster, Flipsnack, Story Jumper, Storybird, Quizlet, Socrative, Edmodo, Schoology, PictoChart, and Visme. So these are different tools are available, and as per your requirement, as per need of the learners, you can think of and you can make use of it. So with this, I think that the topic assigned to me, I tried to cover up within the time limit. If you have any question, that can be taken up now.